Imagine a world where Canada and Greenland became part of the United States. It sounds crazy, right? But if Trump's audacious plan to acquire them actually happens, how would it change America and in the world today? Today we're diving into the economic, political, and logistical impacts of such a move. Now buckle up. First things first, is it even possible to buy a country in 2025? Short answer, highly unlikely, but possible. Let's break it down. Countries are sovereign entities. Greenland, a territory of Denmark, can't just be sold off without consent from its people and the Danish government. Similarly, Canada is an independent nation, not for sale. A sale would not only require negotiation, but also extensive public approval processes in both countries. Even if these hurdles were cleared, the diplomatic fallout could be immense. Imagine the political turmoil and backlash from global leaders. Selling national territories in modern times isn't just rare, it's nearly unthinkable. Article 1 of the UN Charter emphasizes self-determination. Any forced acquisition could violate international law, potentially sparking global outrage. This means even a non-violent acquisition could require overwhelming support domestically and internationally to avoid reputational damage. The cost of such a deal, both financially and diplomatically, could reach unprecedented levels. Buying Canada or Greenland might require overwhelming diplomatic pressure, or, in worst case, military action. A scenario no one wants to consider. Such a move could lead to sanctions, retaliation, and a collapse in international alliances. The damage to relationships with NATO allies alone could take decades to repair. And let's not forget the logistical challenges. Acquiring a country isn't as simple as signing a check. It will require lengthy negotiations, public referenda, and potential constitutional amendments in both the United States and the countries in question. The timeline alone could span decades, and any missteps during this process could derail the entire plan. But let's assume, for argument's sake, that Trump pulls this off. What would the economic fallout look like? Greenland is sitting on untapped mineral wealth, including rare earth metals critical for technology, and oil. Canada, meanwhile, is resource-rich in oil, timber, and fresh water. The U.S. could significantly expand its economic base. These resources could bolster industries like renewable energy, tech manufacturing, and agriculture. Additionally, Greenland's geographic location could serve as a strategic hub for Arctic trade and defense. Integrating these resources into the U.S. economy could lower costs for critical materials, potentially boosting American manufacturing. But it could also lead to conflict with existing industries and environmentalists. Resource extraction often clashes with conservation efforts, and large-scale projects might spark protests. Long-term environmental impacts could become a global concern. Businesses in Canada and Greenland would now operate under U.S. laws and tax codes. Some might thrive in the larger market, but others could struggle with the new regulations. For example, stricter U.S. labor laws might clash with the current practices, leading to higher operational costs. Conversely, some Canadian businesses might benefit from easier access to American consumers and lower taxes. However, aligning business practices across such vastly different economic landscapes could prove more difficult than anticipated. Imagine the tax windfall. Adding Canada's economy worth $2.2 trillion would significantly boost U.S. federal revenues. But integrating two new territories could also be a logistical nightmare. Adjusting infrastructure, healthcare, the education system to U.S. standards could take decades and trillions of dollars. Rural regions in Greenland might require extensive investments just to establish basic services, let alone match American standards. And here's where it gets really interesting. How would Canada and Greenland fit into the U.S. political system? Canada becomes the 51st state with 40 million people. It would rival California in size and receive around 55 electoral votes. This could dramatically shift the political balance in presidential elections. A more unified North American market could also reshape regional economies. However, consolidating governance for such a vast new region might stretch American administrative capabilities. Now, if each Canadian province and territory became their own state, adding 13 new states, that would mean 26 new Senate seats and a significant increase in electoral votes. Greenland as a state would add 2 Senate seats and at least 1 House seat. The reshuffling would undoubtedly alter the balance of power in Congress. Political alliances might shift dramatically, creating unprecedented dynamics in both domestic and international policy. Now, What if Canada and Greenland were treated like Guam or Puerto Rico? They'd have limited self-governance but no voting power in federal elections. This would likely anger their populations and spark debates about representation. How long would these regions tolerate being politically sidelined? This question alone could dominate national discussions for years. In this scenario, we could see mass protests or even secessionist movements. After all, people in these regions might feel like second-class citizens. This unrest could have cascading effects, influencing other U.S. territories or even existing states with strong regional identities. The political and cultural consequences could reshape how Americans view their union. Depending on the scenario, this move could either bolster one political party or create unprecedented gridlock in Congress. Imagine the lobbying power of 13 states in Canada's base. It would transform the political landscape overnight. Parties would need to rethink strategies for securing electoral wins and balancing legislative priorities. The complexities of coalition building could skyrocket. Historically, U.S. territorial acquisitions have followed a variety of paths. Take the Louisiana Purchase, which doubled the size of the country and offered vast economic opportunities. Or Alaska, bought from Russia in 1867 for $7.2 million. Skeptics dubbed it Seward's Folly until gold and oil proved its value. Yet such expansions always came with challenges, from legal disputes to cultural integration. Could a modern acquisition follow similar patterns, or would it face unique roadblocks? On the military front, acquiring Greenland would give the U.S. unparalleled access to the Arctic regions. This includes monitoring Russian activities and securing key shipping lanes opened by melting ice caps. Meanwhile, integrating Canada's vast northern border into U.S. defense systems could enhance security, but also demand significant resources to manage. How would NATO allies respond to such a shift in military strategy? And what about the cost? Greenland's value lies in its untapped resources, but accessing them wouldn't come cheap. Developing the necessary infrastructure to extract these resources could cost billions. Canada, with its established economy, presents a more stable integration option, but it would still require extensive investments to harmonize with the U.S. system. NATO allies might see this as destabilizing, especially if it disrupts trade agreements or military alliances. Countries like China or Russia could use this as propaganda to criticize U.S. imperialism. The global response could range from economic sanctions to shifts in international power dynamics. A more territorially expansive United States might spark a new global arms race or align opposing nations against this newly enlarged superpower. But there's another angle to consider. A larger United States might gain significant geopolitical leverage. Controlling Greenland could give the U.S. a strategic advantage in the Arctic, where global powers are already vying for influence. This could reshape military strategies and global trade routes. Both Canada and Greenland are home to vast indigenous populations and critical environmental ecosystems. Would the U.S. respect these, or would it spark new conflicts? Properly integrating these populations would require unprecedented collaboration and respect for indigenous rights. Missteps here could lead to social unrest and international condemnation. Maybe they'll end up like the Native Americans, getting shoved on reservations. Acquiring Canada and Greenland might seem like a pipe dream, but exploring the what-ifs reveals fascinating insights into economics, politics, and international law. What do you think? Could this ever happen, and would it be worth the cost? Let me know down in the comments below. Should we continue Manifest Destiny? Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe. It's much cheaper than buying Greenland or Canada. It's free. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.